Alrighty. So continuing on with the Jordan Peterson videos, we're going to check out this one. It's called How Hitler Was Even More Evil Than You Think. Let's check it out.
So here's what you should have done if you were a Nazi and you wanted to win the war. You should have enslaved the Jews and the Gypsies and had them work, right? You should have had them work for the benefit of the victory, and then if you wanted to, you liquidate them afterwards. That's the logical thing to do if you want to win. And we assume that Hitler wanted to win. But that's not a very intelligent assumption. Why would you assume that? He wasn't exactly a good guy. So why should we assume that he was aiming at the good that he was promoting, even in his own terms, right? The glorious, everlasting Third Reich, right? That'll rule for 1,000 years and be a bastion of civilization and music, because that's...
I mean, I'll have to listen to more of what he's saying, but I'm pretty sure that he effectively enslaved them, put them to work, and then exterminated them. But let's see what...
Reich, right?
Maybe
That'll
I'm
rule for
missing
1,000 years and be a bastion of civilization and music, because that's the sort of thing he purported to be interested in. Well, so what do you do with the Jews and the Gypsies? Well, round them up, fine. Enslave them, fine. You don't kill them. You certainly don't devote a substantial proportion of your war resources while you're losing to accelerate the rate at which the extermination is taking place, because that's a bit counterproductive, unless what you're aiming at is the maximum possible mayhem in the shortest period of time.
Yeah.
Well, so what happened as the Germans started to lose the war? Did Hitler lose faith in his own ability? No, he believed that the Germans had betrayed him with weakness, and so he was perfectly willing to accelerate the rate at which Germany was losing the war. And so when Hitler and his minions had the choice, here's the choice. You can suspend your unnecessary demolition of people, win the damn war, and then pick it up afterwards, or while you're losing, you can just accelerate the mayhem, even though it's counterproductive.
Yeah. So he's saying, you know, if your goal is to take over and win, then it would be illogical to do what he was saying that he did, is accelerate the loss of the war. Like, obviously no one, you know, he's not saying that, yeah, it's a good thing to do. What he's saying, if that's your goal, you know, the best way would be to do X, Y, and Z. Interesting.
It's like, what'd they pick? Well, they picked to accelerate the mayhem.
Yeah.
And so to me, there's an old psychoanalytic idea. I think this...
So then the question is, why did he choose to accelerate the mayhem rather than, you know, doing a different method, which would have probably been more successful? Let's see.
Was derived by Jung. If you can't figure out what someone is doing or why, look at the outcome and infer the motivation.
Right.
If it produces mayhem, perhaps it was aiming at mayhem.
Yeah.
Now, you know, you have to use that dictum carefully. If someone's irritating you, you know, maybe it's because you're irritable and you should sort yourself out, but maybe it's because they're actually aiming at irritating you.
Right.
And that's the actual motivation.
Got to consider all possibilities.
Not, but it's another tool in your analytical armament.
Right.
So, and so you see, well, and this is the thing about warfare that's so interesting about because you can attribute it to territoriality. You can attribute it to a war for resources. That's what I would say, wretchedly simple-minded economists presume. People fight over scarce resources. It's like, hey, we're a little bit more sophisticated than that. And first of all, what resources are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly happens that we fight over resources, but yeah, I think what he's pointing at is there's oftentimes something a little more deeper, I guess you could say, something not just on the surface.
We're a little bit more sophisticated than that. And first of all, what resources are you talking about? The bloody Inuit had nothing. They lived perfectly well. What did they have? Snow and seal blubber. You know, people can live in unbelievably deprived conditions. And so the idea that there are natural resources that we fight over because there's a shortage of them is a pretty oversimplified view of human beings. It's like, well, why do people fight? Well, maybe they fight sometimes for good reason.
There's definitely got a point there as far as like fighting over natural resources because there's a shortage. The shortage part, you don't really see that. You know, most people, I would think, in modern day, since wars are started for financial gain and, you know, political leverage or power, whatever, which in my mind, the only reason you would want the power is for some sort of financial benefit in the end of the day. But I don't know. Just thinking out loud.
Simplified view of human beings. It's like, well, why do people fight? Well, maybe they fight sometimes for good reasons, but very, very frequently they fight for bad reasons. And those bad reasons are personal as well as sociocultural and economic.
Right.
You know, if you were a Nazi prison guard, for example, whatever pathologies you were carrying around in your destructive little soul, whatever element of Cain was deeply embedded in you, had the opportunity to be manifest fully at every moment of your waking existence, right? You had these people who were completely beholden to you.
Yeah, I mean, think about some of the horrors you heard about with the Holocaust, where Nazis were, you know, freaking slinging babies up against walls. That's something that they already had in them, that the whole sort of movement of the Holocaust manifested or was allowed to manifest. That's really interesting, because we all have the capacity to do something horrible, but ideally we don't do it, but we certainly could. Most of us, I mean, it's not saying you want to or that you like think about it, but I mean, we're all human at the end of the day, so, and humans do it, so.
With no rights whatsoever, to whom you could do whatever your evil little heart determined. Think, well, maybe that was a motivation for putting them there to begin with. And all the
Sometimes you get a very minor sense of that, what he's talking about in the job, you know, where your boss is on a power trip and it allows their evil to come to the surface. There's not as much holding that back.
The cover story about, well, we're trying to build the Third Reich and we're trying to stabilize the state and we're trying to do all these good things. Maybe that's just a cover story for the real motivation, which is nothing but what? The construction of death camps that killed 6 million people. How about that? And the obliteration of 120 million people on the planet.
Yeah, because if your goal is to win the war, then why would you literally just kill all these people that you already have them enslaved in camps? I mean, what would killing them benefit, I guess, would be the question he's wondering. And so then, because he can't find an answer to that, he's inferring that his goal was simply mayhem or something personal, rather than just economically, you know, for the war effort or whatever.
And the leaving of Europe in ruins. Maybe that was the motivation. Or are we going to attribute to Hitler the highest possible motives? Say, no, it's an archetypal manifestation of Cain. Now, he's going to put up a front that says, well, I'm your savior. It's like, well, destructive people think that Cain is their savior.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I'm granted, don't take what I have to say to heart, because I really don't know much about, you know, the Holocaust. I know a little bit about what we were taught. I know about probably what most people know, but Jordan Peterson seems to be very interested in, I guess, the pathology of thought that sort of caused something like the Holocaust. No, not caused it, but, you know, was maybe one of the factors in there. Yeah, very interesting stuff. I'll maybe have to check out some more of his videos on this topic, because this was a pretty short one. But yeah, very interesting. So, yeah, thanks for watching again, guys. And if you like this kind of stuff, you know, leave a comment, like the video, let me know. If not, sorry. But yeah, thanks for watching.